Howdy, it's tubalcain again, and I recently took another road trip to Cody, Wyoming to see my brother Jan, and after talking to him and going through his shop, I got a few more ideas and things that he likes to do to make his job easier there in his little home shop. So this video is entitled 10 Shop Kinks from Jan in Cody, Wyoming. So let's get started here and take a look at some of the ideas that he came up with and that he uses. Jan has a little problem in his hands with strength, and he's even older than me, if you can imagine that. So what he does with chuck keys like this Jacob's chuck key, K3 is probably the most common size, but he likes to take a piece of 1/2 inch aluminum and ream it out the right size and put it on like that, and it gives that little extra leverage that you need, and because you can grip it out here a little bit farther and tighten your drills in your chuck. So I'm going to put some Loctite on that, but that's a pretty good fit. So I'll Loctite it on there, and that way I got the advantage too of a little more leverage or mechanical advantage. On the drill press, the key is always in the way, or you can't find it, one or the other. So often you want it off of the table when you're drilling, but here's a handy way to store it. This is just a little bracket made by Jan, and I've got it loosened up now, but it's held on with a big hose clamp, and it's 2 pieces of angle iron bolted together, and I think I would prefer to weld it, but he doesn't have a welder. And there could be other holes drilled here for countersinks or other little tools, whatever you need. But that's a handy way to keep your chuck key. And take a look at this chuck key. This is a safety chuck key, and I use these at school because the very first semester I was there, a kid turned the drill press on while he still had his hand tightening, and it just bent the heck out of one finger. It was as crooked as a dog's hind leg, and it still is. I still see him occasionally, and he's retired and almost as old as me, believe it or not. But the safety key, if you've never seen one of these, just keeps the key from staying in the chuck. You see, it kicks it out. So I like to use that with my grandson when he uses the drill press. It's kind of annoying sometimes because you got to force the key into the chuck, but it's effective. Here's a handy way to store your keys on your lathe, and that's with a little holder here held on with a magnet, but you could drill and tap it in there if you wanted also, because magnetism, as you know, is somewhat annoying. Matter of fact, it does limit how quickly you can pull this out, because it's not just held in there by gravity, it's held in there by magnetism. That does slide around a little bit. And most tailstocks probably do not have a good flat spot on to use this, but if you do have one like this closing, and I think this will work pretty good on an Atlas too, but probably not on a South Bend. But this is a piece of 3/4 inch aluminum, 1.5 inches long, 3/4 square, and about a 3/8 hole in there, and then there are 2 magnets that are just pressed in there, or can be held in with Loctite, and these are the Neodymium type super magnets, and they're quite strong. You could use 3 of them on there if you want also, and those holes were formed on the drill press with a 1/2 inch end mill, so they're nice flat bottom holes. So I present that for your consideration. Now that seemed like a trivial thing to show you, but you know how much time you spend looking for chuck keys, but the problem here is to discipline yourself to always return it to its spot when you're done, because it does get caught in the clutter, as you well know, and then you waste time looking for your chuck key. I cannot tell you the amount of time that I wasted and the kids wasted in the high school shop looking for chuck keys, because I wanted one on every lathe and on every drill press, and I didn't want them moved, but you know how that goes. So I would chain them onto the tailstock. This one isn't chained, but I would have a hole drilled and tapped, usually on the other side, and a fixture, something like this, to hold it on. It didn't have to be that way. It could just be a cap screw running through this chain, and that's just common sash chain, and it can be purchased in different sizes. I'm not sure what size you call that. It's available by the foot, or it used to be. But do not do this on the drill press, because I had more kids. I used to hang one on the drill press like that too, and they would leave it in the chuck and someone would turn it on and it would spin around and cause mayhem, and also stretched these pieces of chain out such that they were just stiff and unruly. But how did I do this? I simply took a 5/8 lock washer, and of course these are hardened, you know, so I did anneal it. Just do that with your Bernzomatic torch, heat it red hot, let it cool slowly, and it'll be just as limp as can be. And then you can twist it to open it and put the chain on there. It's not jack chain, it's sash chain. I don't know why I want to say jack chain. And you remove the handle from the chuck key just by tapping it with a brass hammer straddled over the vise, and that'll come out. It's just pressed in there with a knurl. That allows you to put the washer over here, and then you can close this with put one in the vise and the other with a crest wrench. You can close it once it's been annealed. Also, I filed out, once it was soft, a little slot there that would accommodate the chain. Can you see the little slot right there? Maybe not. Also, there was a time when when I came there, all the chuck keys were fitted with they had a hole in it like this, and a piece of wire that held a chain on it. I didn't like that at all because it hurts your thumb, but that's why that hole was still there, because I equipped some of mine like that too until I realized that I didn't like that method. But there's a possibility for you. At every Harbor Freight store, and we all go to Harbor Freight whether we like it or not, they sell these handle magnets, and they are about $3, and I got a whole bunch of them. And I bought more last time I was in one of the stores, but they're most handy to put on a lathe and just keep your chuck key. Yeah, that moves around a little more than I like. But this key here is so massive that the magnet attracts it as well. But I also have one on the Craftsman lathe, as you can see right there. I can't put it up on the belt guard there because that's made of aluminum. But there's a possibility for you to try to hang on to your chuck keys, because they get lost in the chip pan, don't they? I've talked about neodymium magnets, super magnets, in another video. You probably haven't seen it because nobody watched that one, but I thought I did some pretty interesting things with these big magnets showing the lens effect, but oh well. But you can buy these in catalogs or sometimes in stores, and they're called super magnets or neodymium is what they use these in cell phones, and just all of our electronic devices have these, but they are incredibly powerful, and that's what I'm using in some of these projects. Notice I have to space them out because they are so powerful that they attract one another, and they come in the tiny sizes or bigger sizes. You can get one as big as a hockey puck, but they cost hundreds of dollars, and you can get them with holes in them so you can screw them to items, and they're just pretty neat. Now when they run into each other, they do tend to chip. They are brittle, but boy, they are wonderful to use, but they can be annoying, as any magnet can, and it will magnetize anything that you get near it. But I've showed you how to demagnetize as well. So that's the kind of magnets that I'm using in these little projects. I'm at the Bridgeport mill now, and one little problem and annoyance that I always had is that the Quill Lock does not stay up, and it causes just a little bit of a drag, which I do not like. Now I noticed that somebody does sell a little harness or something, it will hold it up there, but I finally came up with what is really the obvious, and that's just a tiny little magnet here someplace, and when you move it up, it holds the lever in place, the Quill Lock lever in place. So I really love that. I don't know why it took me 40 years to do the obvious. A video that I made called Making a Nut Buddy for Your Bridgeport to loosen the quill, not the quill, the drawbar rather. It's a very popular video. A lot of people have watched that, but yet I received great criticism and nitpicking on that. I'm not sure why. And a lot of thumbs down, but it is a handy thing. But All right, be that as it may, my brother pointed out that just in any outdoor store like Cabela's or Bass Pro Shop, go to the reloading department and they sell these little plastic boxes in many different sizes, and this one had a lid which I took off and threw away, but this cost $1.99 or $1.89, but it's just the handiest thing to store your end mills, keep them from bumping together and getting dull. So consider those. And we have long used this type of arrangement, just wood with holes drilled in it, and that works great too. Another little idea that he came up is to buy these little ammunition boxes, I guess is what they are. This one came from Cabela's, and it's the handiest thing for storing my Dremel bits in a semi-organized manner, because the actual Dremel case, if you have one, is a bit of a nightmare, and it just doesn't accommodate these, and you end up with a lot more of these than what the Dremel case allows. So I usually throw the Dremel cases away anyway, but I do like this from Cabela's or probably any other outdoor sports. We all use vice jaw protectors to protect our work from time to time, and they come in many different flavors, and here's a brass set that's pretty well used, and I do use those. And then I've long used this set of Wilton brand, and I think they sell a whole line of these, even including some that are made of plastic, and it has a bit of a V-way in it as well, with magnets, and but they aren't very strong magnets, and those work well. But you know, these are probably about $35 a pop, and maybe even more when you include the postage, so you can make your own pretty easily out of aluminum angle iron, available at the handy rack at any hardware or box store. And I bought 1 inch by 1 inch, and then I sawed it off here a little bit because that was too wide, but it was 1 inch by 1 inch, and just remove some of the material and throw it away, recycle it, and drill and ream some holes here for magnets, and those are 3/8 diameter magnets, and that'll hold it in place. Again, the magnetism will be a bit annoying to you as well. And here's the other one. Go in like that, and it pretty well protects your work, so consider that. I'm back at the Bridgeport, and I use a lot of parallels in my work to raise the work up out of the vise. And what I often notice, and I like the thin parallels, especially for small work, but they just are constantly falling over on you. Yeah, even right there, and that was, I think you get what I mean. So what I've come up with is sometimes your parallels do not need to be all that accurate, so just get yourself some aluminum bar stock. This is 1/8 by 1, but it's available in different sizes. And put one magnet in them. That's about a 3/8 magnet or so. And when you put that into the vise, that's going to stay there. And the other one there. Those are super cheap, accurate enough, even though they're not ground. You're going to find them accurate enough for most work. And disposable. If you run a drill into them, you don't hurt the drill, and you can make new ones or just dress them up. And what I did there was to, that's a 5/16 magnet, and the aluminum is 1/8 by 1 by 5. Well, this is a 5-inch vise. A 6-inch vise I think is more common. You will have to make sure that you push the work down, because they will not necessarily stay at the bottom by gravity. So there's an idea for you. Now, a short tip on center drilling, and we do a lot of center drilling on all of our lathes, but have you ever noticed that sometimes as you center drill and you first start the cut and engage the bit with the work, that it lifts up or moves off and you're not truly on center, and there's a lot of causes for that, including tailstock misalignment, etc., etc. But sometimes our chucks are inaccurate as well. So what I sometimes do is to use a device specifically made to hold center drills. This one was made by Cleveland, but I know Scully Jones and others make them as well. And this one happens to be a number 2 Morse taper. And this is a number 4 center drill, which happens to be 5/16 diameter. But this is handy to use, although notice that it takes up much less room than a lengthy chuck. Now sometimes that's annoying because you have to keep changing the distance here if you're switching different drills, but these are so accurate, and these are used a lot on turret lathes and other production tooling. But put that in there. It's short, stubby, rigid, and super accurate, and you might find that a help for center drilling. And I need to get one or make one for my other lathes that have number 3 more stapers in the tailstock. But let's take a closer look at this, because these are probably going to be hard to find unless you get them used, or just too expensive to buy, but there is an alternative for that. Somebody asked me recently what one of my favorite brands of drill bits are, American made, and it is still Cleveland, and I just love that Cleveland logo, and I used to buy so much of that when I was at the high school. But this is marked 5/16, and then there's another number on it. I suppose that number 2 would be number 2 more staper, but I suppose that's a stock number. But if you look at how these are made, they're split, so when you put them into the tailstock, it pinches them even more. Now these are self-holding, so I'm going to just pull this out and show you something here. Just pull out. And I know you can't see much there, but perhaps you can see as I reinsert this and twist it, it locks in place. You see that, or can you hear that? Well, that was the vice handle. Pay no attention to that. And it's catching on the flutes to keep the drill bit, the center drill, from revolving. Now here's an idea on how to make one yourself. This is a used Jacob's Arbor that I'll probably never use again, and I have a lot of these, and you probably do too, but you can certainly buy these for $6 or $7, but don't make a special order because shipping and postage is always a problem, so you want to try to double up on what you get so you get it all at one time. But when you get these, the newer ones that are imports are usually just dead soft, so they're very easy to work with, but you might find some of the genuine Jacob's ones to be a bit hard, but be sure and check with a file to make sure they're not hardened, because, and that one is fairly hard and probably not usable, but let me show you how to do it anyway. Let's go over to the lathe. I'm going to run through this real fast because I think I might make a separate video on this, because this is kind of an interesting subject when you come to think of it. But in order to do this, you need to make sure that you have aligned your tailstock, and that's shown in 100 other videos I have. But this Arbor here probably also could be cut off. That's longer than what you need, especially when you compare it with the Cleveland. So let's pretend that it has been cut off. Make sure there's no burrs on here. This is clean. Tap it in there. And now what you would do is move this up, lock it, and do your center drilling from the headstock. Now the center drill really should be held in a collet for super accuracy, or otherwise all is for naught. But this is the little Jacob's Adjust-A-True chuck that I featured in a recent video. Maybe you haven't seen it yet. So this one is set for about $1,500, so it's as good as a collet right now and would serve that purpose. But you're simply going to drill this very slow and accurately, and then ream it 5/16. Well, it depends on what size center drill you're using, so choose your weapon and go to a sufficient depth that you can calculate. And then to finish it off, you will need to drill and tap a hole for a center drill, for a set screw. Yes, a set screw to hold this in place. And you might very well want to grind just a little bit of a flat on the center drill that's going to go in there, and then tighten it down. So that's 10 tips from Cody, actually 9. The last one here is mine. So hope you enjoyed this, and this is tubalcain saying be sure and watch my 600 other videos. Saying so long for now, and I will see you in my next video.